Kalen flew over a dead world. Rust and dust stretched to the horizon. The sun was a pale ghost in a sick yellow sky. His small ship, the Grit Eater, coughed and sputtered. It was an old vessel for an old trade. Kalen was a scavenger. He picked over the bones of forgotten civilizations. This one was called Earth. The world was famous for its silence. No transmissions, no energy signatures, no life. The stories said its people were fearsome warriors. They called themselves human. They had burned bright and fast. Then they were gone, wiped out in a war nobody talked about anymore. Now their planet was just another tomb in a crowded graveyards of stars. Kalen's scanners pinged, a faint whisper of strange energy. It was deep beneath the surface of a glass desert. The sand had been fused by ancient orbital fire. He landed the Grit Eater on a sheet of black obsidian. The ship's landing struts groaned in protest. A real pilot would have been gentler. Kalen was just a guy with a key and a lot of debt. He pulled on his enviro suit. The air outside was thin and tasted of ash. He trudged toward the signal's source. The silence here was different. It felt heavy. It felt watchful. Kalen shivered despite his suit's climate controls. He hated planets where the ghosts felt richer than the salvage. The energy source was buried under a collapsed metal titan, a war machine from a forgotten age. Kalen used his plasma cutter to slice through the wreckage. He worked for hours under the weak sun. Finally, he saw it. Not a power core, not a weapon. It was a simple shard of metal, no bigger than his hand. It was smooth and cool to the touch. The metal was a dark, swirling gray. It seemed to drink the light. The energy hummed from within it. A soft, clean power unlike anything he knew. It was not the angry thrum of a Xylo's engine. It was not the sharp crackle of a Cathar weapon. It was a steady, peaceful pulse. It felt like a heartbeat. He held it up. The shard's surface shimmered. For a moment he saw not his own reflection. He saw a face, pale and strange. Two forward-facing eyes filled with a shocking intelligence. A human. The image vanished as quickly as it appeared. Kalen stumbled back. His own 3 hearts hammered against his ribs. This was no ordinary relic. This was something more, something powerful. The stories said humans were gone. But this felt alive. The hum resonated deep in his bones. It was a song of immense sadness and unbreakable pride. He knew with absolute certainty what he had to do. This was too big for the small time markets. This was a piece for a true collector. A piece for the one being in the galaxy obsessed with the lost human race. He would take it to the collector, Lord Val. The thought of the reward made his greed outweigh his fear. For now. The journey to the Citadel was a long one. Kalen spent the time staring at the shard. It rested on his control console. Sometimes it would hum louder, sometimes its surface would flash with ghost-like images. He saw tall cities that touched the clouds. He saw vast green forests teeming with life. He saw silver ships sailing between the stars. He saw a world bursting with color and sound, a world that was now silent. He felt a strange sense of loss for a people he had never known. The shard seemed to be mourning. It was sharing its grief with him. This artifact was more than a key or power source. It was a memory, the last memory of a dead species. Kalen found himself talking to it. He told it about his debts. He told it about his worn-out ship. He told it that he was sorry. He wasn't sure why. He finally arrived at Viel's private fortress, a moon-sized station called the Citadel. It loomed in the blackness of deep space. It bristled with weapon emplacements. Kalen swallowed hard. Selling to Lord Viel was always a risk. The collector was known for his aggressive negotiations. Some sellers entered the citadel. They never came out. But the shard hummed on his dashboard. It seemed to give him a sliver of borrowed courage. He transmitted the standard access code. A smooth, oily voice answered. It was Vile's majordomo, a being of pure protocol named Xylo. State your purpose, scavenger. Kalen cleared his throat. I have something for the Master's collection. A unique piece. There was a long pause. Lord Vile is not seeing visitors. Kalen leaned toward his comms unit. Tell him it's from Earth. Tell him. It remembers. The silence that followed was different. It was the sound of shock and ravenous curiosity. A tractor beam locked onto the Grid Eater. It pulled his small ship into the Citadel's main hangar bay. The doors hissed shut behind him. Kalen picked up the shard. Its gentle warmth was the only comfort in the cold, sterile air. He had the collector's attention. Now he just had to survive the meeting. Lord Vile was taller than Kalen expected. He was a member of the Anath, a species known for their height and their cruelty. He wore robes of shimmering black silk. His face was a mask of polite interest. But his eyes burned with a cold fire. They fixed on the shard in Kalen's hands. Nothing else in the room mattered. Vile's collection room was vast. It was a museum of the impossible. A Cathar thought helm rested on a pedestal. The battle standard of a forgotten warrior king hung on the wall. A dormant star science egg from a void kraken sat in a stasis field. But Vile only had eyes for the shard. You claim this is a human artifact. His voice was smooth, but held an edge of steel. It is, Kalen said. His voice was a squeak. He held it out. I found it on their dead homeworld. Vile did not take it. He gestured for a scanner drone. The small machine floated forward. It bathed the shard in a dozen different light frequencies. Data scrolled across a holographic screen. Vile's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. The energy signature was unknown. The material composition was impossible. It violated 3 known laws of physics. Fascinating, Vile breathed. And its memory? Kalen nodded. It shows things. Glimpses of their world. Of them. He decided not to mention the face. Some things were best kept to yourself when dealing with a creature like Vile. The collector finally looked at Kalen. A thin smile touched his lips. You have brought me a true treasure, scavenger. Name your price. Kalen's asking price was obscene. He asked for enough credits to buy his own moon. He asked for a new ship, a top-of-the-line freighter. He asked for a clean slate, an end to his life of running and hiding. Lord Vile listened patiently. When Kalen was finished, Vile simply nodded. Done. Kalen was stunned. He had expected to haggle. He had expected threats. A transport with your new vessel is waiting, Vile said, his eyes still on the shard. Your accounts have been credited. He gestured with a long, slender hand. A heavily armed guard appeared at Kalen's side. The majordomo will see you out. Kalen handed the shard over. The moment it left his grasp, the warmth was gone. A cold emptiness replaced it. He felt a pang of deep regret. He had sold a ghost. As the guard escorted him away, Kalen glanced back. Lord Vile was holding the shard. His head was bowed as if listening to a secret. His face held a look of pure rapture. Kalen was quickly ushered out of the throne room. He didn't look back again. He had his fortune, he had his freedom. But as he boarded his brand new ship, he couldn't shake a terrible feeling. He had not just sold a relic, he had sold a key. And he had given it to the worst possible person in the entire galaxy. Lord Vile spent days in his private laboratory. The shard rested on a diagnostic altar. He blasted it with radiation. He subjected it to intense gravitational fields. He tried to peel it apart at the atomic level. The shard remained inert. It was a stubborn, silent piece of metal. The gentle hum it had produced for the scavenger was gone. It was just a lump of strange, untouchable matter. His frustration grew with every failed attempt. He had paid a small fortune for this. The scavenger's story of visions had to be true. The energy signature was real. Why would it not reveal its secrets to him? He was Lord Vial, the galaxy's foremost collector of exotic antiquities. Relics spoke to him. They gave up their secrets to his genius. All except this one. Perhaps it requires a more subtle touch, his majordomo Xylo suggested. Xylo stood by the door, a silent pillar of judgment. Vial scowled. I have been subtle. I have used sonic persuasion. I have used magnetic resonance. I have even tried asking it nicely. This last part was a lie. Lord Vial did not ask nicely for anything. This was one of his rare attempts at a joke. Xylo did not react. Vial paced his lab. The walls were lined with failed experiments, reminders of other puzzles he had yet to solve. But the human shard was the most infuriating of all. Humans, a species of violent, unpredictable apes. They had punched far above their weight for 1,000 years. They had built wonders. They had waged terrible wars. And then they had vanished, wiped out by the very council they sought to join. A messy, inconvenient loose end, tidied up and forgotten. He believed the official story, but he also believed the whispers, the rumors that humanity had hidden its greatest secrets, the stories of superweapons, of star science beyond the council's understanding. He believed this shard was a key to those secrets, and it was mocking him with its silence. In a fit of rage, he slammed his fist on the control panel. Enough games. He decided on a brute force approach. He would flood the artifact with raw energy. He would overload its matrix until it shattered. He would sift through the dust for answers. He calibrated his station's secondary power conduit. He bypassed every safety protocol. Xylo made a soft, clicking sound of disapproval. Master, that is unwise. The energy feedback could be catastrophic. Vial ignored him. I am Lord Vial. I control the catastrophes here. He diverted a massive amount of power, enough to jumpstart a dead star. The lights in the citadel flickered. The energy beam, a torrent of pure white plasma, lanced out from an emitter. It struck the shard. For a moment, nothing happened. The shard simply absorbed the energy. It drank the entire torrent without changing. Vial stared, bewildered. Then the shard began to glow. A soft blue light emanated from its core. The hum returned. But it was no longer gentle. It was a deep, resonant tone that vibrated through the entire station. And then it pulsed. A single, silent wave of energy erupted from the shard. It did not damage the lab. It did not make a sound. It simply expanded outwards. It passed through the Citadel's hull as if it were not there. It shot out into the void of deep space at impossible speeds. A signal, ancient and powerful, now awake and racing across the galaxy. The signal was a key. It was a song. It was a command. Lord Vial did not know what he had done. He saw only the glowing shard on the altar. He had finally made it react. A triumphant smile spread across his face. He had won. He was a genius. Far out in the blackness, the silent wave traveled on. It passed through nebulae and star clusters. It washed over civilized worlds and pirate outposts. No one could detect it. No one could feel it, except for those for whom it was intended. a people long thought dead, a people who were merely sleeping. Deep within the swirling gases of the Serpent Nebula, something stirred. The nebula was a graveyard for ships, a treacherous region of space pirates avoided. The thick energy clouds and gravitational tides made navigation impossible. Official star charts marked it as empty, uninhabitable. The charts were wrong, very wrong. Hidden in the nebula's heart was a fleet, hundreds of ships, silent and cold. They had drifted here for centuries. Their hulls were coated in cosmic dust. They looked like asteroids. They looked like ghosts. These were the last ships of the human race, the survivors of a war everyone else had forgotten. They had been waiting. On the bridge of the flagship, the Defiant, an alarm blared. It was a sound no one had heard for 300 years. Red lights flashed across the cold, dark bridge. A single technician, woken from cryo-sleep by the alert, stared at his console. His eyes were wide with disbelief. Signal detected, he stammered to an empty room. It's the Ares key. The Ares key, a mythical activation signal. A legend told to children in the fleet's classrooms. A story of a day of return. A day when Earth would call its children home. The technician never truly believed it. It was a fairy tale, a way to keep hope alive. But the signal was real. It matched the ancient protocols exactly. It was a ghost calling from across the galaxy. Within minutes, the fleet began to wake up. Lights flickered on across hundreds of vessels. Life support systems hummed back to life. Cryopods hissed open, releasing their occupants. Soldiers, engineers, doctors, citizens. A whole civilization preserved in ice and darkness. They awoke to the impossible news. The waiting was over. The long exile was at an end. Confusion gave way to a dawning, terrible hope. Could it be true, after all this time? Was it a trick? A trap laid by their ancient enemies? The fleet's leaders were awakened. The Council of Elders was convened. They gathered on the Defiance Bridge. They were old. Their faces were etched with the memory of loss and defeat. They were the generation that had run, the generation that had chosen survival over honor. They looked at the data. The signal was authentic. There was no doubt. It originated from a sector of space near the old galactic core. But it did not come from Earth. That was the first troubling sign. The signal was a key, but it was being broadcast from a stranger's house. This was not the simple homecoming they had dreamed of. This was a puzzle, a dangerous one. The bridge doors hissed open. A woman strode in. She was younger than the elders. Her uniform was crisp. Her eyes were clear and sharp. This was Commander Eva Rostova. She was born in the fleet. She had known nothing but the cold darkness of the nebula. She was the leader of the fleet's military, a commander with no wars to fight. Until now. She looked at the tactical display. The signal's point of origin was marked. A station called the Citadel, the property of a collector named Vial. "The signal is real," she said. Her voice was steady. It cut through the elders' worried murmurs. "The Ares protocol has been activated. The question is not what it is. The question is what we do about it." The long wait was over. The hidden fleet was hidden no more. The galaxy was about to be reminded of the humans it had tried so hard to erase. And it was about to learn that you should always check to make sure the dead are truly dead. The Council of the Lost convened in the Defiance main briefing room. The air was thick with tension. The faces of the elders were grim. They were the keepers of a terrible secret. They had witnessed the fall of humanity. They had made the choice to flee, to hide, to preserve what little remained of their people. They were survivors, not heroes. and they were afraid. Elder Theron, a man with a face like cracked parchment, spoke first. His voice was frail but carried the weight of his years. "It is a trap." He stated it as a fact. "The council that betrayed us discovered our sanctuary. They use our own codes against us. They seek to lure us out, to finish the job." His gaze swept across the room. He saw fear in the eyes of his fellow elders. He saw agreement. "The signal is perfect," countered another elder, a woman named Lynn. "Too perfect for an alien imitation. They could not know the quantum entanglement frequencies." She shook her head slowly. "Something has been found. Something of ours." Her logic was sound, but in a life defined by caution, logic was a poor comfort against fear. The fear of extinction was a hard habit to break. Commander Eva Rostova stood at the head of the table. She listened patiently. She respected the elders. They had saved her people. But their caution was now a cage. For 3 centuries, they had drifted. They had survived. But they had not lived. Their children were born in the dark. They dreamed of a sun they had never seen, of a world that was only a legend. "Fear is a luxury we can no longer afford," Eva said. Her voice was firm but respectful. "For 300 years we have waited. We have taught our children the stories. We have maintained our ships. We have trained our soldiers. For what? To drift in this cloud of gas until our engines fail and our spirits break?" She pointed to the tactical display. "The signal comes from a private fortress, the Citadel, owned by Lord Vile, a collector, not a Galactic Council fleet." She paused, letting her words sink in. "He is not a military threat. He is a rich man with a hobby that now includes something of ours. Something important enough to send the Ares signal." Theron scoffed. "You are young, Commander. You see a straight line. I see a spider's web. Vial could be an agent of the Council, a puppet. This is how they work, with deception, with lies." He leaned forward. "We are safe here. Our fleet is the last bastion of humanity. We must not risk it for a ghost, for a relic. That relic is our past." Eva's voice rose, a flash of fire in her eyes. It could be a weapon, a databank. It could be the key to finding other survivors. "We have always believed we were the only ones left. What if we were wrong?" She lowered her voice again. "We have a duty, not just to the people in this fleet, but to the memory of the billions who died. We have a duty to know the truth." A tense silence fell over the room. The elders looked at one another. Ava's words had struck a chord. The dream of not being alone, the hope of finding others. It was a powerful thing. But the risk was immense. If they revealed themselves, the entire galaxy would turn against them. The old powers would unite to crush the human menace once and for all. Eva saw the hesitation. She knew she had to offer a compromise, a path that honored their fear but did not surrender to it. "We do not need to send the fleet," she said calmly. "Send one ship, a stealth vessel, a small team. Let me lead it." Her eyes met Theron's. "Let me go and see what this signal is. I will be a ghost, in and out. If it is a trap, the fleet remains safe. The loss will be mine alone." "And if you are captured?" Theron asked softly. "They will learn of us. The result is the same." Eva shook her head. "My ship's data core will be wiped if captured. My crew and I understand the stakes. We will not be taken alive." The finality of her words hung in the air. It was a promise, a grim one. The elders exchanged uneasy glances. They were old men and women. They had run from a fight long ago. Now a young woman was offering to run toward one. She was offering them a chance to be more than just survivors. She was offering them a chance to be human again. Commander Eva Rostova's words settled over the council. She had offered them a middle path, a way to investigate without risking everything. It was a bold plan, a dangerous one. But it was better than hiding. Hiding had kept them alive, but it was slowly killing their soul. Elder Lynn was the first to break the silence. She is right, Theron. We cannot live in this tomb forever. We owe it to our children to try. Theron looked at Eva. He saw the fire in her eyes. It was a fire he remembered from his youth. The fire of Earth. The fire they thought had been extinguished forever. He saw the faces of the other elders. He saw doubt warring with a desperate hope. He finally gave a slow, reluctant nod. One ship, he said. His voice was heavy. One stealth ship. You will go. You will observe. You will not engage unless you have no other choice. Eva's face remained neutral, but a wave of relief washed over her. I understand, Elder. We will be a whisper in the dark. She stood tall. I will take the Odyssey. My best crew. We will be ready to depart in 6 hours. Her efficiency was legendary. She did not waste time. She did not second guess. She acted. It was what made her a great commander, and it was what the elders feared most. Theron sighed. The decision was made, for better or for worse. The council approves, he said formally. Commander, you have your mission. Find the source of this signal, learn its purpose, and come back to us. The unspoken words hung in the air. Come back alive. Eva gave a single, sharp nod. For humanity, she said. It was the fleet's oldest and most sacred oath. She turned and left the council room. The weight of her entire civilization settled on her shoulders. She walked through the corridors of the Defiant. The ship was coming alive around her. People were emerging from their cryobunks. There was a buzz of excitement and fear in the recycled air. Children pointed at her as she passed. They had grown up on stories of Commander Rostova, the hero in the dark. Now their hero was heading out into the light, a light that could either save them or burn them to ash. She assembled her team in the Odyssey's hangar bay. There were only 5 of them. Lieutenant Jax, her pilot and oldest friend. A man who could fly a brick through a meteor shower. Dr. Aris Thorne, their star science expert and historian. A man who knew more about dead aliens than living humans. And 2 Marines, Sergeant Kai and Corporal Lena, 2 of the toughest soldiers in the fleet. They were all born in the nebula. None of them had ever seen a real planet. This is a reconnaissance mission, Eva told them, her voice echoing in the hangar. We are ghosts. We are echoes. We go to the citadel of Lord Vale. We find the source of the Ares signal. We learn what it is, and we report back. She looked at each of them in the eye. The risks are extreme. The fleet's survival depends on our secrecy. No mistakes, no heroics, just the mission. Jax grinned. So no blowing anything up? That takes all the fun out of it, Commander. His lightheartedness was a welcome relief from the tension. Eva allowed herself a small smile. Try to restrain yourself, Jax, at least for the first day. The team laughed, a brief moment of humor before a leap into the unknown. The Odyssey was a beautiful ship, a stiletto of black alloy. It was designed to be invisible. It ran on silent thermal drives. Its hull could mimic the energy signature of empty space. It was the most advanced piece of technology the fleet possessed. It was their only real advantage against a galaxy that had forgotten them. As they prepared for departure, Eva stood on the Odyssey's bridge. She looked at the view screen. It showed the swirling, colorful gases of the Serpent Nebula. her home, the only home she had ever known. She was about to leave it. She was about to step into the galaxy that had destroyed her ancestors. She felt a surge of fear, but beneath it, a stronger emotion burned. Resolve. She was the commander. This was her duty. She would not fail. "Jax," she said, "take us out." Silent running. Jax nodded, his hands flying over the controls. "Aye, Commander." Rigging for silent flight. The Odyssey slipped away from the hidden fleet. It moved like a ghost through the nebula's currents. It was a single tiny ship on an impossible mission. A mission to reclaim their past, or to be erased by it forever. Far away, in the gleaming spires of the Galactic Archives, a keeper named Szeth Tar noted an anomaly. The archives were the brain of the galaxy, a planet-sized repository of all known information. Szeth Tar was one of its librarians, a being of immense age and patience. His species, the Cygnian, were observers. They recorded history. They did not participate in it. Szeth Tar's job was to monitor for deep space signals. Most were just cosmic noise, the dying whispers of a pulsar, the chatter of a distant quasar. But the signal that arrived today was different. It was structured. It was artificial. And it was old. Impossibly old. His sensitive cilia quivered. He had not felt a signal like this in 3 centuries. He isolated the transmission. It was a single, powerful pulse. Its point of origin was a private station in the core worlds. But the signal itself, the code, it was familiar. He cross-referenced it with the archive's oldest and most restricted files, the ones marked for deletion, the ones no one was supposed to see, the ones labeled human, a match. The signal was a human military code, a deep level activation protocol. Ari's key. Szeth Tar's calm, ordered mind felt a flicker of something akin to excitement. This was impossible. The humans were gone. The Galactic Council had seen to that personally. Their homeworld was a wasteland. Their colonies were glassed. Their species was officially extinct. A closed chapter in the grand, violent history of the galaxy. He had been a young keeper when the human war occurred. He remembered the emergency council sessions, the sealed orders, the sanitized public reports. The official story was that humanity had become aggressive, a threat to galactic peace. The council had acted reluctantly, a preemptive strike to save billions, a tragic necessity. Szeth Tar had always suspected there was more to it. The records were too clean, too perfect. Too many files were permanently sealed. Now this signal, a ghost from the past, a key from a dead civilization. He dug deeper into the archives. He accessed files that had not been opened in centuries, old data logs from the war, faded reports from council patrol ships. Most were corrupted, but some were not. He found fragments of information, mentions of a hidden human fleet, rumors of survivors who had escaped the final purge. The council had dismissed these as propaganda, as the dying lies of a defeated enemy. But what if they were true? What if a remnant of humanity had survived, hiding in the dark for all this time? Waiting, the thought was disruptive. The galaxy had moved on. The balance of power was stable. The return of humanity would be a cataclysm. They were a chaotic element, an unpredictable variable in the neat equation of galactic politics. Szeth Tar looked at the signal's origin point again. The Citadel, Lord Vile's fortress. Vile was a known eccentric, a wealthy fool who collected the trinkets of dead empires. What had he found? How had he activated this ancient call? Szeth Tar felt a sense of professional duty. An anomaly of this magnitude had to be investigated. But he also felt a strange, uncharacteristic sense of caution. He did not report his findings to his superiors. Not yet. He knew what the council would do. They would send a fleet. They would sterilize the citadel. They would bury this secret again, this time for good. They would not risk the chaos the humans represented. Szeth Tar made a decision. A very unkeeper-like decision. He would watch. He would monitor the citadel. He would see who answered the call. For 300 years, he had been a passive recorder of facts. But this ghost from the past stirred something in him. A sense of curiosity. A sense of justice. The official story of humanity's fall had always felt wrong. Perhaps, he thought, it was time for a new chapter to be written. He created a private, encrypted file. He began to compile all the old human data. He would be ready. The whispers in the archives were growing louder, and Szeth Tar was listening. Lord Vael was no longer triumphant. His initial joy had soured into a deep, simmering rage. The shard had pulsed once. It had sent out its galaxy-spanning signal, and then it had fallen silent again. It rested on its altar, a dark, mocking shape. It had given him one glimpse of its power, only to snatch it away. He had spent weeks trying to replicate the event. He had tried the same energy frequency. He had tried more power. He had tried less. Nothing worked. The shard was once again an inert, stubborn lump of metal. His expensive scanners told him nothing. It was just an object. But he knew it was more. He had felt its power. To make matters worse, the shard had started to change. Its smooth surface was no longer smooth. It now swirled with faint, ghost-like images. They were fleeting, insubstantial. But they were there. He saw tall, phantom figures walking through the walls of his laboratory. He saw their strange, pale faces watching him. Their eyes were hollow, accusing. He tried to capture the images. His hollow recorders showed nothing. They were only visible to the naked eye, to his eye. He thought he might be going mad. The stress of his obsession finally cracking his mind. He threw a priceless crystal vase at the wall. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. The ghost-like figures did not flinch. They just watched. "They are mocking me," Vael roared to his majordomo. Xylo stood impassively near the door. "Perhaps the artifact is responding to your emotional state, my lord," the majordomo suggested in his calm, oily voice. "Your frustration may be feeding it." Vael whirled on him. "Are you suggesting I should be calm? I have the key to the universe in my hands, and I cannot turn the lock." He stormed over to the altar. He glared at the shard. The ghostly figures swirled within it. He saw a woman's face. She had dark hair and eyes that burned with a cold fire. He felt an irrational jolt of fear. She looked familiar, like a half-remembered nightmare. "Who are you?" he whispered to the image. "What do you want?" The image faded, replaced by the endless, silent swirling of dark metal. His obsession with the shard was costing him. He was neglecting his business empire. He was ignoring messages from important clients. His rivals in the collection underworld were circling. They smelled weakness. They thought Lord Vael was losing his touch. He had to unlock the shard's secrets. He had to prove them wrong. He had to reassert his power. One of his agents reported a minor disturbance in the Serpent Nebula. A faint, unauthorized energy reading. The local patrols had dismissed it as a sensor ghost. Vael would normally have ignored it as well. But something made him pause. The Serpent Nebula. It was one of the rumored hiding spots of the human remnant, an old, debunked conspiracy theory. But now, he had a human artifact that sent out a signal, an artifact that showed him ghosts. What if the signal had been answered? What if something was coming? A paranoid thought. The thought of a madman. But Vael had built his empire on paranoia. He trusted his instincts. He ordered the Citadel's long-range sensors to focus on the nebula. He doubled the patrols around his fortress. If something was coming for his prize, he would be ready. He would blow it out of the sky. No one takes a treasure from Lord Vael. He turned back to the shard. His frustration was now mixed with a new emotion, a thrill of anticipation. The game was changing. It was no longer just him against the artifact. There might be a new player, a player who might have the answers he sought. So, he whispered to the silent shard, "You have called for your owners. Let them come." A predator's smile touched his lips. Let them come and see what has become of their legacy. The ghosts in the shard swirled faster. He was no longer just an observer of history. He was about to become a part of it. And Lord Vael intended to be the victor. The Odyssey moved through the forgotten pathways of the cosmos. Lieutenant Jax was a master at the helm. He navigated the ship through stellar nurseries and asteroid fields. He used the gravity wells of dead stars to slingshot them across vast distances. They were traveling far from the standard patrolled space lanes. They were a ghost ship on a ghost road. Inside the ship, the mood was tense. The crew of 5 operated with quiet efficiency. Dr. Aris Thorne spent his time studying the data from the Ares signal. "The carrier wave is impossibly complex," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. "It's layered with multidimensional encryption. No wonder Vael couldn't crack it. It would take a normal supercomputer 1,000 years. He tapped his screen. But to our systems, it's a simple greeting card. He seemed delighted by this, a testament to human ingenuity. Commander Rostova watched the star charts. They were following the signal's echo, a faint trail of breadcrumbs left across the fabric of space-time. The trail was leading them directly to Vael's citadel. There was no longer any doubt. The journey was long. It gave Eva too much time to think. She thought about her people, safe in their nebula. She thought about the elders, praying she would not bring ruin upon them. The lives of thousands rested on her judgment. To lighten the mood, Jax had started a running commentary on the strange cosmic sights. "On your left, you'll see the galactic donut of despair," he'd announce over the comm. "Local legends say its sprinkles are the shattered dreams of failed starship captains." Sergeant Kai would grunt in amusement. Corporal Lena would roll her eyes. It was a small, silly ritual, a way to remind themselves they were still human, even in the deepest, darkest parts of space. As they drew closer to the core worlds, they began to see signs of galactic civilization. The occasional freighter, a distant patrol ship. The Odyssey's stealth systems were flawless. They slipped past them all, unseen and undetected. To the rest of the galaxy, they were nothing more than a flicker of cosmic radiation, a sensor glitch. Eva studied the files on Lord Vael. The man was a paradox, a connoisseur of fine art and a ruthless black marketeer. His fortress was said to be impenetrable. It was protected by the best security systems money could buy. Its defenses were supplied by the same companies that armed the Galactic Council's warships. Getting inside would be difficult. "His security network is state-of-the-art," Kai noted, studying the Citadel's schematics. "Energy shields, kinetic barriers, squadrons of fighter drones. And that's just the outside. The inside is probably a maze of biometric scanners and armed guards." Lena smirked. "Sounds like a party." Kai and Lena were warriors. They lived for a challenge. This was the ultimate challenge. Iris Thorne, however, had found a weakness, a very human weakness. "Lord Vial is a collector?" the doctor said, his eyes twinkling. "He doesn't just collect artifacts. He collects their operating systems. He keeps them intact for authenticity." He pulled up a file. The Citadel's internal network is a patchwork of different alien technologies. But the core command system, the master AI that runs everything, is of a single, ancient design. He looked at Eva. "It's a Hephaestus-class AI. One of ours. Vial probably bought it as an antique. He would have no idea what it truly is." Eva felt a surge of hope. A Hephaestus AI. The most advanced artificial intelligence humanity had ever created. They were designed to build and manage entire worlds. They were loyal, and they would only respond to a human voice, to a specific human bloodline. "Can you access it?" Eva asked. Aris shook his head. "Not from out here. We'd have to be inside. We'd have to physically connect to a terminal in the core server room. So they still had to get inside. The hard part. But now they had a goal, an objective beyond just finding the shard. They had a way to turn the fortress against its owner. The Odyssey finally arrived in the system. The Citadel loomed before them. It was a moon of polished black metal and glowing lights, a monument to one being's ego. It was beautiful, and it was deadly. "Taking us in," Jack said, his voice low and serious. The humor was gone. This was the final approach. He guided the ship into the shadow of a large asteroid floating in the Citadel's debris field. They would wait here. They would watch. And they would plan their next move. The ghost ship had arrived at the haunted house. Now it was time to knock on the door. The team gathered in the Odyssey's briefing room. The mood was grim. A holographic image of the Citadel floated in the center of the table. It was a fortress, a dragon's horde, and they were the would-be thieves. "The direct approach is suicide," Sergeant Kai stated, his arms crossed. "We can't fight our way in." Commander Rostova nodded. "I agree. We need to be smarter." "Aris, what have you found?" Dr. Thorne tapped a few controls. The hologram zoomed in on a specific section of the Citadel, a garbage disposal chute. "Charming," Jax muttered from the back. Aris ignored him. "Lord Vial is arrogant. He spent a fortune on weapons and shields. But he skimped on the sanitation systems." He pointed to the chute. "This leads to a recycling nexus deep inside the station. It's shielded against energy scans to prevent spies from analyzing his trash. But the physical hatch is a simple, outdated model." "So we go in with the garbage?" Lena asked, a look of distaste on her face. "It's undignified," Aris admitted. "But it's also our only way in without being detected." Eva considered it. It was risky. It was messy. But it was brilliant. Vial would never expect an attack from his own waste disposal system. It was the perfect plan because it was beneath him. "Okay," Eva said. "That's our entry point. Jax, you stay with the Odyssey. Keep her hidden. Be ready for a fast evac." Jax nodded. "You got it, Commander. Try not to get any space gunk on the seats when you get back." Eva looked at the rest of her team. "Kai, Lena, Aris, you're with me. We go in light and fast. Standard infiltration gear. No heavy weapons. We are not there to start a war." The plan was set. Jax expertly piloted the Odyssey towards the garbage chute. The ship's stealth systems were pushed to their limit. They were a needle in a haystack of sensor readings. He maneuvered them right up to the outer hatch. Eva and her team stood in the airlock. They were clad in black infiltration suits. Their faces were grim but determined. The airlock opened. They were in the void. For a moment, Eva looked out at the sea of stars. It was beautiful, terrifying. She focused on the mission. Kai used a plasma torch to cut the lock on the garbage hatch. It was slow, careful work. One mistake could trigger an alarm. After an agonizing few minutes, the lock hissed and clicked open. They had a way in. They slipped inside the chute. The darkness was absolute. The stench was impressive. Remind me to thank Aris for this brilliant plan, Lena whispered over their private comm channel. I'm sure he'll appreciate it, Aris whispered back, sounding slightly offended. They slid down the long, curving tube. They landed softly in a massive chamber filled with discarded crates and machine parts. The recycling nexus. They were in. Now for the hard part, navigating the Citadel's interior. Aris pulled out a small datapad. I'm trying to access the station's internal schematics, he said. But the network is firewalled from low-priority areas like this. Eva nodded. Then we do it the old-fashioned way. We find a terminal. They move through maintenance corridors and service tunnels. They were ghosts in the machine. They saw droids performing their duties. They heard the distant chatter of alien guards in a language they didn't understand. The Citadel was a city in itself, and they were in its underbelly. After an hour of careful movement, they found what they were looking for: an unguarded security office. Kai disabled the camera outside the door. Lena sliced the electronic lock. They slipped inside. The office was empty. A single computer terminal sat on a desk. Jackpot, Aris breathed. He plugged his datapad into the terminal. Lines of code scrolled across his screen. I'm in, he said, bypassing the local security protocols. Now. He grimaced. Viel uses a Cathar encryption matrix. It's nasty, but it has a flaw. It's based on prime numbers, a very human obsession. His fingers flew across the keypad. Our ancestors built backdoors into everything, just in case. A map of the Citadel appeared on his screen. It showed guard patrols, sensor grids, and their target. The central chamber where Viel kept his most prized possessions. And at its heart, a single, powerful energy signature. The shard. There it is, Eva said, and the core AI server room is adjacent to it. The plan was coming together, but the map also showed something worrying. The chamber was heavily guarded. Red dots, representing Viel's elite guards, swarmed around it. There's no way we can sneak past that many, Kai said. Eva looked at the screen. She saw the guard patrol routes. She saw the sensor sweeps. And she saw a pattern, a flaw in the perfection. Aris, she said, can you trigger a security alert? A false alarm. In the East Wing. A power surge in the hydroponics bay. Aris grinned. Child's play, Commander. He typed a few commands. Far across the Citadel, an alarm began to blare. Most of the red dots on the map began to move. They headed towards the false alarm, like insects drawn to a light. That's our window, Eva said. It won't last long. Let's move. They slipped out of the office and headed for the central chamber. They were moving against the flow of traffic. Guards rushed past them, heading in the opposite direction. No one even gave them a second glance. They were invisible in the chaos. They had breached the Citadel. They had used ancient human codes no alien could ever know. Now, they just had to steal back a piece of their soul. The team reached the massive doors of the central collection chamber. They were sealed tight. A complex locking mechanism glowed on the wall. No time to pick this one, Kai muttered. We'll have to cut it. Eva shook her head. Too loud. Aris? Dr. Thorne was already at the panel. He plugged in his datapad. This is a higher security level, he warned. Viel uses rotating quantum keys. They change every 3 seconds. Can you break it? Eva asked. Aris smiled faintly. I don't have to. The system has a master override, a verbal command protocol. He looked at Eva. It's keyed to a specific biosignature, a failsafe for the owner, but the builders left their own failsafe in place. He gestured for her to approach the panel. It's an old Earth language. One Vial wouldn't even know existed. Speak the words Sanctuary Prime. Eva stepped forward. She took a breath. The words felt strange on her tongue. Ancient, sacred, Sanctuary Prime, she said clearly. For a second, nothing happened. Then the glowing panel flashed green. With a heavy, grinding sound, the massive doors slid open. They were in. The chamber was a testament to Vial's ego. A vast, circular room filled with priceless artifacts. Each one was displayed in its own stasis field. But Eva only had eyes for the center of the room. There, on a black pedestal, rested the shard. It was just as the scavenger had described it. A piece of dark, swirling metal. It was larger than she expected, and it was humming. A low, powerful thrum that resonated in her chest. It was a song of home. They approached the pedestal cautiously. The shard's hum grew stronger as Eva got closer. It seemed to be responding to her, reaching for her. The energy readings are off the charts, Aris said, his voice filled with awe. It's resonating with your biosignature, Commander. The shard knew her. It knew she was human. Eva reached out a hand. Her fingers hesitated just above its surface. She could feel the power rolling off it in waves, a sense of immense age, of profound sadness, and of unbreakable will. She finally touched it. The moment her skin made contact, the room changed. The humming stopped. A brilliant blue light erupted from the shard. It projected a holographic image that filled the entire chamber. It was not a single image. It was a recording, a full sensory experience. They were no longer in Vial's museum. They were standing on a balcony overlooking a city, a human city. Towers of silver and glass pierced a sky of perfect blue. Flying vehicles zipped between them. The air was filled with the sounds of life. Laughter, music. It was Earth, in its prime, in its glory. Eva felt tears well in her eyes. It was more beautiful than any story, more real than any dream. The scene shifted. They were in a council chamber. Not the small, dark room on the Defiant. This was a grand hall. Humans in elegant robes argued with aliens of a dozen different species. This was the Galactic Council. This was the moment humanity had petitioned for membership, to join the galactic community as equals. The holographic record showed the chief human diplomat, a woman with kind eyes and a firm voice. She spoke of peace, of shared knowledge, of a future where all species work together. The alien council members listened. Their faces were unreadable masks. The head of the council, a stern-looking being from the Anath species, stood to deliver the verdict. Eva recognized the species. Lord Vale was Anath. The scene flickered again. The mood was darker now. They were on the bridge of a human warship. Alarms were blaring. The ship was shaking from weapons fire. Outside the main view screen, a fleet of council warships was attacking. Not just Anath ships, ships from every major species in the council. It was a coordinated, brutal assault, a betrayal. The final scene was the most painful. It was the last message from the human high command. A woman's face, haggard and streaked with grime, filled the projection. It was the same face Vial had seen in the shard. The face of Eva's ancestor, from whom she had inherited her command authority. "They have betrayed us," the woman said, her voice cracking with grief and rage. The Council promised peace. They brought us war. They fear our potential, our speed of innovation. They do not want a partner. They want to remain masters. Her eyes seemed to look directly at Eva. Across the centuries, we are not defeated. We are scattered. To the children of Earth, I give this final command. Survive, remember, and one day, return. The holographic image flared. It showed a star map, a complex three-dimensional chart of the galaxy. Dozens of star systems were highlighted. And then a final, terrible truth was revealed. The recording showed the Council ships not just attacking military targets. They were systematically sterilizing civilian worlds, bombing cities, glassing planets. It was not a war. It was an extermination. The hologram collapsed back into the shard. The chamber was silent again. Ava's team stared in stunned horror. They had known there was a war. They had known they lost. But they never knew the truth. They were not defeated in a fair fight. They were ambushed. They were murdered by the very people who claimed to be the guardians of peace. The Council had not just defeated humanity. They had committed genocide, and they had lied about it for 300 years. The silence was broken by a new sound, a soft, feminine voice echoing through the chamber. It was not coming from their comms. It was coming from the room itself. Commander, Eva Rostova, blood of the prime lineage confirmed, the voice said. Hephaestus AI designation 97 online. Command authority transferred. Eva looked up. A small camera lens glowed on the ceiling. It was the Fortress AI. Vial's antique. It had recognized her. It had recognized the bloodline of its original masters. Security protocols updated. The calm voice continued. New designation for owner, Lord Vial. Hostile entity. Threat level, maximum. Suddenly, the Citadel came alive. Red lights flashed. Alarms blared. But these were not the alarms Aris had triggered. These were internal security alerts. Heavy blast doors slammed shut, sealing the collection chamber. From the walls, automated defense turrets emerged. They did not point at Eva's team. They pointed at the doors. They were protecting them. A holographic map appeared in the air next to Eva. It was a schematic of the Citadel. It showed Lord Vial and his guards. They were trapped in the East Wing, confused by the false alarm. Now they were trying to get back. The fortress is yours, Commander. The AI said. My systems are at your disposal. What are your orders? Eva stared at the map. She stared at the shard in her hand. The terrible truth of her people's past burned in her mind. Her small mission of reconnaissance was over. This was something new. This was a reclamation. She had come for a relic. But she had found a fortress, a weapon, and a truth that would shake the galaxy to its foundations. Seal the entire level, Eva commanded, her voice hard as steel. Hunt every one of Vial's guards. But leave Vial himself. I want him to know who has come for him. The Fortress AI replied without hesitation. Acknowledged, Commander. Initiating sweep protocols. Happy hunting. The galaxy thought humanity was a ghost. It was about to learn that this ghost could bite back. The Citadel turned on its master. Automated turrets rose from hidden panels in the corridors. They fired precision stun bolts, dropping Vial's guards where they stood. Security fields activated, trapping entire squads in shimmering cages of light. The Fortress AI was systematic, efficient, merciless. It knew every inch of its own architecture. It knew every weakness in the security patrols. It was a perfect predator, hunting in its own territory. Lord Vial was in chaos. He saw his elite guards, warriors he had paid a fortune for, being neutralized by his own fortress. He screamed orders into his comm unit, but received only static in reply. The AI had locked him out of the system. He was a prisoner in his own home. He finally realized the truth. The human artifact, the signal. This was not a random malfunction. This was an attack. The humans had come for their property. Back in the collection chamber, Ava's team watched the chaos unfold on the holographic map. Well, Jax's voice crackled over the comm from the Odyssey. The party seems to have started without me. Ava allowed herself a grim smile. The fortress is ours, Jax. The AI has recognized my command authority. There was a moment of stunned silence from the Odyssey. You're kidding, Jax finally said. You stole a moon. The databanks are now open to me, Commander. The Hephaestus A, I announced. Lord Vial was a meticulous record keeper. A new window opened on the holographic display. It was Vial's private files. Decades of secret deals. Blackmail material on Galactic Council members. Shipping manifests for illegal weapons. But hidden within it all was the real treasure. Vial had been obsessed with humanity. He had spent a fortune acquiring any data he could find. Aris Thorne stepped forward, his eyes wide. Commander, this is everything. Council meeting transcripts from the war, unedited battle reports, the order for the extermination. It's all here. The proof, the undeniable proof of their crime. He scrolled through the files. His hands were shaking. This was the dream of every historian in the fleet. The truth, raw and unfiltered. But there was more. One file was buried deeper than the rest. It was encrypted with a code that even the Hephaestus AI had trouble with. This file is from the shard itself, the AI explained. It was downloaded when you touched it, Commander. Ava looked at the file. It was labeled Exodus Protocol. Open it, she commanded. The file decrypted. It was a star map. But it was not the same map the holographic recording had shown. That map showed the worlds that had been lost. This map showed something else. It was a map of the galaxy's most secret, hidden corners. The dark nebulae, the rogue star systems. And in a dozen of these locations, there were markers. Human markers. What are we looking at? Kai asked, staring at the map. Aris's voice was a reverent whisper. It's a contingency plan. A diaspora map. The High Command didn't just send out one fleet of survivors. They sent out many. They sent them in all directions, to hidden worlds prepared in secret years before the war. He looked at Eva, his eyes shining with an almost holy light. We are not the last. We are not alone. The revelation struck them all with the force of a physical blow. They were not the last remnant. They were just one piece of a scattered people. For 300 years, they had carried the burden of being the last humans alive. That burden was now lifted, replaced with a staggering, incandescent hope. There were others, other fleets, other colonies, a whole nation in hiding. The shard wasn't just a memorial, Ava realized. It was a beacon and a key. It was meant to be found by one of us, to lead us back to each other. She looked at the star map. A dozen hidden worlds, a dozen tribes of humanity, waiting in the dark. Just like them. The AI spoke again. Lord Vial is neutralized, Commander. He is cornered in his throne room, awaiting your pleasure. Ava looked at her team. Their faces were changed. The weariness was gone, replaced by a fierce, burning purpose. They were no longer just soldiers on a mission. They were the heralds of a new dawn. Let's go see him, she said. He wanted to own a piece of human history. He's about to become a very small footnote in it. They had the fortress. They had the truth. And now, They had a map to their family. The legacy of the stars was finally within their grasp. Eva stood in the doorway of Lord Vial's throne room. The collector was on his knees. His fine silk robes were torn. His face was a mask of disbelief and terror. The automated turrets in the ceiling were all pointed at him. Her team stood behind her, their weapons lowered but ready. They were no longer infiltrators. They were conquerors. "Who are you?" Vial stammered, his eyes wide with fear. He looked at Eva's face, the face he had seen in the ghost-like images from the shard. "The ghost," he whispered. Eva stepped into the room. She held the shard in her hand. It hummed softly, a song of victory. "We are not ghosts," she said, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. "We are the people you thought you had erased." She held up the shard. "This belongs to us. You built this fortress to celebrate the dead. But you made one mistake. You used our technology. You used our machines. And our machines remember who their masters are." Vial stared at her, his mind struggling to comprehend the impossible. "The humans are back." "We were never truly gone," Eva corrected him. "We were waiting." She turned to Aris. "Transmit everything. The truth of the war, the Council's betrayal, the proof of the genocide. Transmit it to the fleet." Aris nodded, his fingers already flying across his datapad. He was using the Citadel's powerful galaxy-spanning comms system. The truth would travel far and fast. Then Eva looked at the star map, still glowing on her holographic display. "And transmit this," she said. "Transmit the Exodus protocol. To every ship, to every family. Let them know we are not alone." A massive stream of data flowed out from the Citadel, a wave of truth washing over the Serpent Nebula. Back on the bridge of the Defiant, Elder Theron watched the data pour in. He saw the recordings of the Council's betrayal. He saw the proof of the genocide. Everything he had feared to be true was confirmed. All the pain, all the loss. It had not been a war. It had been a slaughter, a cold, calculated purge. Then he saw the star map. He saw the dozens of markers, the hidden colonies, the other survivors. For 300 years, he had lived with the guilt of running, of being one of the few who had escaped. He was not one of few, he was one of many. A sob escaped his lips, not of grief, but of overwhelming joy. Across the hidden fleet, the same scene played out. People wept in the corridors, they cheered in the mess halls. The truth burned away their shame. The star map ignited their hope. They were not the last embers of a dying fire. They were a scattered but mighty people, and their time of hiding was over. On the bridge of the Defiant, Theron stood tall. The frailty of age seemed to fall away from him. "Sound the general alarm," he commanded, his voice booming with a strength no one had heard in years. "All ships, prepare for departure. Plot a course to the first marker on that map." He looked at the faces of his fellow elders. Their fear was gone, replaced by a righteous anger. "Our commander has given us the truth. Now, we will give the galaxy a reminder." Eva Rostova stood on the bridge of her new fortress. The AI had given her full control. She watched the data stream out into the void. She had done it. She had reclaimed her people's past. And she had given them a future where they were not hiding in the dark, a future where they would be united. Strong. "Commander," the AI said. "Multiple fleets of unknown configuration are powering up their drives, in all the locations indicated on the Exodus map." Eva looked at the tactical display. Dozens of new fleets were appearing on the board. Human fleets. They were answering the call. The Great Awakening had begun. From the darkness, humanity was returning. And the galaxy, which had slept peacefully on a bed of lies, was about to have a very rude awakening. The children of Earth were coming home, and they would not be silent ever again.